The young puma screamed as the ledge beneath her collapsed. Rain slammed into the ravine, water roaring so loudly she could barely breathe. Her claws slid through the mud. One more slip and the flood would take her. A rope dropped out of the darkness. A firefighter scrambled down the slope, boots skidding, rain blinding him. He reached her just as the ledge shattered completely. The puma fell. He lunged and caught her by the scruff with one burning hand, the rope tearing through his glove. The current hammered his legs, trying to rip both of them into the river below. He hauled upward inch by inch, muscles shaking, refusing to let go. One final pull. She collapsed onto his chest, drenched and trembling. He covered her with his emergency blanket, whispering to calm her as the storm raged around them. She never forgot the man who saved her life. Years passed, and the puma grew into a powerful mother of two. She stayed on the high ridges, avoiding town, except for one house at the forest's edge, where she'd pause at dusk, remembering the human who once saved her from a storm. But the mountains had changed. A brutal heat wave turned the underbrush to tinder. Lightning sparked fires that the crews barely contained. Smoke crept into her territory. Coyotes fled uphill. Birds abandoned their nests. One evening while hunting, the puma saw it, a wall of fire crawling toward her den, fast and hungry. Her cubs cried behind her. There was no escape through the cliffs. No safety in the woods. Only one place remained where she had ever survived disaster: the human's home. The fire hit before the wind could warn. The puma woke to cracking timber and heat rolling into her den. Sparks rained at the tunnel entrance. Her cubs squealed. She herded them backward, searching for a gap, but the flames were already tearing through the brush. She lunged into the smoke. The world was orange and choking. Trees collapsed, embers exploding across the path. She pushed her cubs ahead, shielding them as ash singed her fur. Usual escape routes were gone. The creek boiled. Cliffs were blocked. All creatures fled downslope in blind terror. Her injured paw, once healed by human kindness, ached with every step, slowing her more than she wanted to admit. A burning limb crashed beside them. She shoved her cubs out of the way and took the brunt of the heat along her flank. Pain seared her side, but she didn't stop. She knew where she had to go. Down the ridge. Through the old deer trail. Toward the small town below, where danger had once ended instead of begun. The cubs grew tired fast. One stumbled and nearly rolled off a rock ledge. She caught him by the scruff and pulled him close, heart pounding. Smoke coated their throats. Every breath rasped. Then, through the ash, she smelled it. Not fire. Not forest. Home. The human's home. The memory flashed. Strong arms lifting her from rushing floodwater, a warm voice murmuring calm, a blanket on the porch as she healed beneath the porch light. She had never forgotten the safety of that scent. The fire roared behind them, racing down the slope. She gathered the cubs, pushed through the last wall of smoke, and burst onto the edge of the town clearing, paws burning, lungs raw, but alive. Ahead stood the same porch. The same yard. The same man she trusted once before. Now staring at her with shock as she staggered forward with her babies. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The puma stood at the edge of the lawn, shoulders trembling, cubs pressed against her legs. Ash drifted off her fur like snowflakes. The firefighter, now off duty, dressed in a faded t-shirt, slowly lowered the hose he'd been using to wet the yard. His eyes widened with a shock he didn't try to hide. "It's you," he whispered. The puma let out a rasping chuff, low and hoarse. Not a threat. A plea. One cub collapsed onto its side, coughing. Instinct ripped through him. The firefighter stepped forward before fear could talk him out of it. The mother stiffened, but didn't strike. She simply watched, unblinking. He knelt, palms open, letting her see every movement. "It's okay," he murmured. "I've got you." The cub flinched as he slid his arms beneath it, but the puma dipped her head. Permission granted. He lifted the trembling little body and hurried toward the porch. The other cub tried to follow but staggered. The puma nudged it gently, guiding it forward. The firefighter returned with a thick blanket and a bucket of clean water. He set them down, retreating just enough to give her space. She lowered her cubs into the blanket, curling half around them, half watching him. Behind them, the mountains glowed red. Flames crept down the ridge, embers carried on the wind. He moved to the porch window, grabbed his radio. "I have injured wildlife, 2 cubs and a mother. They need evacuation now. Fire is 30 minutes out." The dispatcher replied, "Tense. Copy. Stay put. Help is on the way." He turned back to the puma. "You came here because you trusted me? Didn't you?" A soft rumble answered, deep, grateful, exhausted. He filled a bowl with water and slid it toward her with the back of his hand, never turning his palm upward, never making himself look larger. The puma sniffed, then gently nudged her cubs to drink. A siren wailed in the distance. She stiffened. He shook his head. "They're here to help." Just like before. For the first time since she appeared, her body eased. She pressed her forehead softly, briefly, against his arm. A gesture no wild puma gives lightly. The fire roared closer, but the bond between them held. The fire crews arrived just as the first embers drifted across the treetops. Engines lined the street, lights flashing red across the smoke-stained lawn. Firefighters fanned out with blankets and stretchers, moving slowly, carefully, as if approaching royalty. No one dared speak above a whisper. The puma stood tall despite her trembling legs, positioning herself between the cubs and the unfamiliar faces. But when the firefighter stepped forward, the same man who once lifted her from floodwater, she softened. She stepped aside, allowing him to pick up the injured cub first. "Easy now," he murmured, wrapping the little one in a fire blanket. Her tail swayed once. Trust acknowledged. The second cub clung to her leg. She nudged it toward him, eyes steady. Another permission. The team carried the cubs toward the animal rescue transport, engines rumbling, the sky behind them flickering orange. The puma followed a few steps, then stopped at the edge of the lawn. She looked back at the firefighter. He froze. Ash swirled around them, glowing in the headlights. She blinked slowly, once, twice, then lowered her head in a gesture so deliberate it felt like language. "You brought them to me, so I could bring them back to you," he whispered. A gust of wind carried sparks from the ridge. The fire was descending fast. He tried to guide her toward the transport. "Come with them. We'll get you out." But she didn't move. She wasn't leaving her territory. Not again. She had brought her cubs to humans for safety. Her part was done. With a final rumbling chuff, she turned and disappeared into the drifting smoke, her silhouette swallowed by the burning forest. Hours later, after the fire crews pulled back, the firefighter stood alone on his lawn. From deep within the scorched valley came a single call, a puma's voice, strong and alive. Not a cry for help. A message of thanks.